let's talk about how to connect with your guides, angels, higher self, spirit animals, whoever that you are desiring to contact who is beyond your physical body and experience. So the first step is being able to clear your mind. Having a clear mind is very important because when it is full of thoughts and worries or fears or everything that can happen in the mind, it's very difficult for beings that are beyond us to get their messages in there. If there's not much room, it's going to be hard to receive more, especially when it is from spirit. Messages from beyond can be very quiet. They can be very subtle. They can be very symbolic. And those things are easier to pay attention to when the mind is clear. So finding this quiet meditative mind is the first step. And you can do that through different practices. You could breathe out your worries. You could breathe out. You could imagine a balloon, blowing everything out into this balloon. Like, all right, all my thoughts, blow into this balloon and let it fly away. You could do one where you're allowing the thoughts to just kind of be blown out of your mind by a gentle breeze, building into a strong breeze, just blowing everything out of your mind. You could explore the meditative quiet mind through guided meditations. Another method is going outside. Often when we are outside, just looking at things that are really beautiful, our mind gets quiet. So that could be a method you use also, is just go outside where your mind is clear, get enough tactile. Maybe you need to put your feet on the ground, get enough sensory happening that you get out of your head. So first step, clear your mind. So the next step is to ask those beings that you are attempting to contact. You ask them to contact you. You are asking them to start this dialogue. And this is an important step because beings that love you, that are for your highest and best good, they completely respect that you're here on earth doing your earth thing, and they're not going to just start talking to you because that would disturb your experience. So beings that are for your highest and best good, you have to ask them to communicate with you. So I am writing below this little script that you can use in your in the way that you communicate with them. You can ask them in any way, but below I have written essentially that, so you would say who you're contacting. Let's say I'm contacting an angel. Maybe I'm going for Archangel Michael. And I would say, okay, Archangel Michael, I am asking you to communicate with me in a way that I can easily understand. So I did that. I said who I am contacting, what I like from them. I give them permission to communicate with me in a way that I can easily understand. And that's kind of important because when we receive information from beings beyond us, it can be really subtle and it can be easily missed. Sometimes it can be really obvious. Maybe like in that moment, we've cleared our minds. We're like, okay, Archangel Michael, I'm ready to receive your information. Please communicate to me now. So very powerful statement there. I'm asking very directly. And then we sit and we go into this quiet space and we wait. And maybe in that moment we receive, if we're clairaudient, maybe we hear like, I am with you now, or something like that. Maybe if we're clairvoyant, where we can, get visions, maybe we see in our mind's eye a big rush of light, or maybe we sense in our bodies a big sense of love, this energy that just kind of like drapes over and covers us. There are lots of ways that things beyond communicate with us, and it can be very subtle because obviously they're not in a body. It can't be, how we talk with each other. It's going to be different. So I briefly talked there about after you make your request, kind of going into this observational space. It could happen in that moment. You could sit there and you could be quietly waiting in your clear, quiet mind, observing, waiting, observing any senses, any emotions, any visions, any messages. Even memories can pop up, and those things can apply. There could be a memory from an experience you had as a child, maybe a moment where maybe you were lost or something and filled with fear, and then all of a sudden, like a butterfly guides you to your parents or something. A memory like that could come up, and it could be a way of letting you know, like, hey, that was me, this being that you're contacting. So that initial communication can happen in a lot of ways. And that next step is to be in this observational state, just open, ready to receive whatever will come in, because it's going to be varied. It's going to be completely dependent on your abilities to receive, as well as the level of ability of the being that you're communicating with. Often when we communicate with loved ones, depending on their soul's experience, it can be really, really subtle. Like they may have a harder time if they're not overly advanced with communicating to us in our physical form. So if it doesn't happen in that moment, stay observant for the rest of your day. Stay observant in your dreams. A lot of the times, beings will come into our dream state because it's easier to meet us there. Our mind is more clear. We're not judging in the dream. We're in a different mind space. So especially for loved ones, if loved ones visit you in your dreams, that's them communicating with you, because that's an easy way for them to do that. Okay, so the next step would be you're open, you're curious, you're observing, and now is to write down what happens. If you get this sudden wave of euphoria or warmth, or just like you could get a familiar smell if it's a loved one, or anything, you write it down. You start to keep a log of these experiences, because over time, this is your validation. When you start to communicate, you can say to this, let's say, for example, you didn't receive anything right in that moment, but then after you saw, let's say, repeating numbers. Maybe you saw 11:11, like it was 11:11 o'clock. You're like, oh, that's interesting. And then you go throughout your day and maybe you see a check number 11:11, or you just start seeing 11:11 everywhere. That is a way of communication that can happen. So you would write that down, and then later, maybe the next day, you can go to that same being that you were communicating with, be like, okay, being Archangel Michael, was that you presenting me 11:11? If it was, communicate to me more 11:11s, validate that with me. Or you can cross-check. You're creating this dialogue. So creating the validation log helps you to start to cross-examine your experience, and it helps validate that with these higher beings. So you could repeat this process every day. Maybe at the start of your day, you say, all right, angels, guides, higher self, communicate with me today, guide me through my day, help me to reach my desires. Do this in an obvious way. And then you go through your whole day, open, observing, writing things down, and over time it gains clarity. It also helps you to, so with that validation, build trust in this process. It helps to build belief in the process as well. Belief and trust help to expand your intuition and your abilities to receive this information. Both of those things are really important. So the validation process is really helpful. So that's a lot of information. I have written down below the sentences that you could use, some examples for communicating and strengthening that communication. Please go ahead and like this video and subscribe, as well as if you'd like, you can do a healing session with me virtually or in person. You can learn more about that on my website. Thank you so much, and I will see you next video.